Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and the Western Province have just beaten the Pumas 28 points to 14 at Newlands. Not maybe the best performance by the Western Province. I think that, you know, when they review their game, they'll think that they probably should have and could have scored more. Equally though, I think the Pumas, had they been a bit braver, could have definitely been in with the game. And look, to be fair, and not to be fair, because they threw it away, should have got a bonus point, because they are the opportunity well after the Huta had gone to kick the ball out and take a point away from Newlands, but they decided to try run. I'm not quite sure why. They couldn't have won the game, they couldn't have drawn the game. The only thing they had to gain was a better score difference, you know. But I suppose, you know, when you look at them, they're not making playoffs at this stage. They're so far behind. Maybe they're just in there thinking, well, maybe pride is more important than that singular point that they're going to get. You know, they've beaten the Greekos twice, so it's unlikely that the Greekos will overtake them anyway. But yeah, it was just a bit odd that they just didn't kick it out at all. Before we dissect the match a bit more, please do consider subscribing, bottom right hand corner of the page, as well smash like, please, as well, and show the support. Right, so first half, I'm gonna get my notebook even out here because I was trying to sort of decide, you know, the best way to look to review that match. And the first half was pretty poor, and the Pumas were in the game, definitely. I mean, we're talking about a half-time score of 8-5. So it really was in the balance at half-time. Pumas had a yellow card, and they managed to concede just 8 points during it. A penalty, probably a card, a bit of a lazy arm. Can't really argue, I suppose. It was sort of player ducking into him, was supposedly a mitigating factor, but it was still a bit of a lazy arm to the head. So that was the yellow card there, and then they got a try towards the end of rolling more, but discipline was pretty poor. And I also thought the officiating in the first half was pretty poor. A lot of scrum penalties, which were very sort of 50-50, sometimes going the different ways, and quite difficult to understand what the calls were being made. Sometimes even penalties that were maybe correct, the wording just seemed wrong. You know, when the referee's saying, you know, scrum standing up, and you look at the replays and it's not standing up, you know, and there's different things going on. So the officiating in the first half was pretty poor, and I think that you could argue that the Pumas' try maybe shouldn't have been a try, but equally you look at the penalty, which eventually turned into the Stormers' try before half time, maybe also not necessarily a penalty. So probably fairly balanced in that respect. The second half was a completely different Western Province side. They came out, the pack really stood up, and suddenly they were dominating collisions, they were getting front football, they were winning a lot of penalties. It was a penalty-ridden match. I mean, I think if you look at it in total, yeah, we had 30 penalties in the game, you know, so it was one of those games where overall the discipline was pretty poor. And the province managed to put themselves in a very good position, and the Pumas suddenly started coming back, sort of in the last sort of 15 to 20 minutes. But look, and the game did look pretty much gone. But what my frustration is that you look at the Pumas who had 5 points at half time, and they kicked 3 penalties to sort of catch up. And I can understand maybe the first one, but I just think at one stage it looked like momentum had slightly changed. The Pumas had really grown into the game and started to look like they were going to do something. And they just weren't brave enough, and they kept going for poles, trying to sort of get themselves within that bonus point. And I think you never know, but I think that, you know, there was definitely an opportunity where they could have backed themselves. They'd even won 2 scrum penalties at a stage, and they could have possibly backed themselves and tried and gone for 5 points and given themselves that outside chance to win. Because what have they got to lose at the end of the day? That's the main thing. You know, what do they have to lose? And which is not much. But yeah, for a very ever-ridden match, it was reasonably close, and I think a lot closer than the scoreboard would suggest, because the Pumas did have their moments. Equally, the Western Province probably wasn't clinical enough, whilst Pumas, just the discipline just let them down. Too many penalties, just poor mistakes and stuff like that. But if you look at some of the match stats in terms of the tackles, Western Province were asked to make 96 tackles, Pumas 107. Province missed 9 tackles, whilst the Pumas missed 8. In terms of the turnovers, 1, Province 5, Pumas 7. Breakdown success, Western Province 56%, they ran 101 rucks, whilst the Pumas ran 43% of their rucks. But the big thing for the Western Province tonight was their rolling maul, and they won 13 mauls. And you know, you look at the tries. Sco Ndebeni had 2 tries. It was just the rolling maul that the Pumas just couldn't counter, you know, and it was just, once they got it set, it was just they couldn't stop it. But the maul is a bit like that. Once you get a good rolling maul going, you don't genuinely stop it. In terms of scrums percent, scrums were pretty sketchy today, to be honest. The Western Province won 5 scrums and lost 2, whilst the Pumas won 2 scrums and lost 1. So yeah, it wasn't the best. I mean, the Pumas won just 25% of their scrums, whilst the Province won 63. You look at individual players and some players that stood out in the entire match. I think for the Western Province, look, there's a couple of interesting ones because there were 2 very early injuries. I think we had 2 players who went off within 3 minutes, which included Sim Sweel. So we got a real chance to see Cade Bollitter play pretty much an entire game, and I thought he was fairly solid. Kicking maybe a little bit not as good as we'd like. You know, really struggled with some of the conversion attempts. They weren't easy, but you kind of start thinking that if Damien Willemse is going to struggle with those kickings, if Cade Bollitter is going to start struggle with those sort of kicks, it does become a bit of a problem if you're in a sort of clutch situation. You're just going, we don't know if we back our designated kicker to be able to slot them. So that is a slight area of concern. But in terms of the players that really stood out, I thought, the Stormers front row, the Province front row was fantastic. Stephen Kitsoff was tireless the entire game. He won 3 turnovers. And Lee Marvin Mazabuko was very, very good. He made 11 tackles and didn't miss 1 today and 1 turnover. He was very impressive. Looking over here, the tackling was fairly good for him from the Western Province. The forwards, you look at tackles made, Selma at 8, David Mehazen 8, Siaklisi 7, Ernst van Rijn 8, Jaco Katsia 7. Mongi Manani was quite solid off the bench. In terms of defense, hats off to the Pumas, 6 and 7. Daniel Martins and Darren Landsberg, 30 tackles between the two and just 3 missed. So a massive shift from there. Echia Prinsloo also 9 tackles, none missed. And I like to talk about 2 wings. First of all, for the Western Province, Angelo Davids is tireless. He works very, very hard. He works very hard in defense. Didn't miss a tackle today and scored a fantastic try where when the ball got to him, he had a lot to do. And I think the Pumas will probably look back at that and think, how did he manage to score? Somebody that size, so many players around him, but he just sort of managed to almost get in between players and get over. So some really good experience at finishing from the 7-star, and he was very good. Rix Pretorius had the most running meters with 62. He's a bit quiet. They struggled to get into the game a bit. And Damien Willemse equally as well. Didn't get as many chances to attack that they would probably have wanted. But I think also a big shout out to Luther Obi, who I thought he just worked tirelessly the entire game. And the Pumas had some very good early opportunities from the sort of counter-attacking, and that was where they were living. During the loose play, the Pumas looked quite dangerous. It looked like they could do something. And Luther Obi finished with 54 running meters. He carried the ball 9 times, beaten 4 defenders. So he was very industrious. He worked pretty hard, and hats off to him because he was in a losing course and a game where they struggled to sort of match the Western Province. But they had the opportunities, and I think if they had just taken more of them, they could have gotten over and actually caused a bit of an upset. But for the Western Province, the important thing is for them, bonus point. That was the most important thing for the Western Province going into this match. They had to get that bonus point, and they did right and well into the over 80 minutes. So they'll look at that game and just say, you know what, the bonus point was the main thing. There were a couple of good individual performances, and they need to move on because the Western Province, coming off 2 losses, they had to go and respond today, and they did. And when I've been saying that John Dobson's under pressure, and a win like today will alleviate some of that. The Pumas, on the other hand, can continue to hold their heads up very high. They are that's a good side. It's one of those proper underdog sides who just love trying to make teams work for a victory, and that's very typical of a Jimmy Stonehouse side. It's not a team that will lie down in front of you. They will make you work for your points, and they've got some very good players, and I think and a lot of good team chemistry. Hats off to them. But the big thing for the Western Province, they got all the points. A couple of things that they'll look at and try and change, but some decent performances, and some good takeaways. But that's what I thought of the game. Let me know what you thought down below. As I said, please do subscribe to the video, smash a like as well. 2 watch-alongs tomorrow. The Sharks versus Bulls game has been moved earlier. Kickoff will be at 2 o'clock South African Standard Time. We will still be doing a live watch-along, however, so come and join us at 2 o'clock. And after that, immediately a Lions versus Cheetahs one as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will chat to you tomorrow.